There is so much to love in the world of video games, and attention to detail is right up there with our favorites. Maybe it's because it's one of those things that shows the developers are putting as much love into their games as we're getting out of them. We can see this through unique and complex mechanics, engrossing narratives, and fan-favorite returning plot points and characters that are included just to make you happy. But it doesn't have to be a big inclusion to get us saying, oh damn, how cool. In fact, most of all the lovely little details on this list are so small that you'd be forgiven, even expected, to miss them entirely. But with a little help from those of you who pay particular attention to every little addition in your favorite games, we've pulled together a bunch of really clever inclusions that truly enhance the game worlds in these already fantastic games once you notice them. I'm Jess from WhatCulture, and here are 10 awesome details you missed in iconic video games. Number 10. If Zombies Could Read, Dead Space Remake. Now, when I say awesome details you missed, I really mean there's an incredibly high chance you're gonna miss these. In this particular case, you'd miss it even if you saw it, unless you happen to speak Norwegian. If you do speak Norwegian and lovingly checked out the environments in the Dead Space remake, I'm sorry, but you're just gonna have to sit back and wait for the next entry for me to tell you something you haven't already heard before. You'll have to excuse my French, Norwegian on this one. Don't worry, I'll only read you the translation, but there is a message scrawled on a wall in-game that reads, "And if you effing zombies have learned to read, go to hell too," which is just fantastic. Fans have mused over why the graffiti is in Norwegian, with explanations ranging from the culturally diverse crew of the USG Ishimura to the similarities between the necromorphs and the mutations in 1982 horror film The Thing, which kicks off at a Norwegian base. Whatever the case, it's a really cute Easter egg. Cute as in it's a cute thing to find, not cute as in it's absolutely the scrawlings of a soon-to-be necromorph charm person. Number 9. The Seculo's Epitaph, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Whether you love the gigantic open worlds that the Assassin's Creed franchise has taken to of late, or prefer the tighter presentation the series used to have before it went full RPG, it's hard to deny that Odyssey in particular is a phenomenal feat of world building. Down to the smallest of features, Odyssey is determined to recreate ancient Greece with a deft hand, and this particular little detail is a great example of that. In several locations, including the seaport town of Killeen, you can stumble upon people singing a particular melody. This wouldn't be much to write home about, except the particular song you can encounter these people singing is the Seculo's Epitaph, the longest surviving musical piece in history. If you, like me, are a gigantic nerd, this is extremely cool. The piece is also included in a couple of the later Civilization games, funnily enough, and it's a fantastic detail for games that strive to recreate such a specific point in history. The composition even has lyrics, which translate to, "While you live, shine, have no grief at all. Life exists only for a short while, and time demands his due." Kind of a bummer, but still cool. Technically, the piece was composed a little while after Odyssey takes place, but it's still a nice touch and an especially important historic find, which makes sense for the franchise. Number 8. One man's trash is another man's treasure, The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. There isn't a long list of video game locations where prosperity flourishes and nobody has to scrap to make ends meet, and if there was such a list, Skyrim would not make the cut. It's a tough life out there, adventurer or no, so when the Dragonborn stumbles into town and drops some expensive shit on the floor, whether they're trying to rearrange their inventory or they just don't want that particular thing anymore, people are gonna take notice. There's actually a few different things that can go down if you drop something, especially something of value. If there are enough people around who think it's worth something, they'll get into a scrap fighting over who's gonna pick it up. Similarly, if you're attacked and your would-be assassin has an expensive item on their body once you're done with them, you can see people trying to loot it, assuming you didn't get to them first. This is pretty easy to miss, since you're probably not going to be leaving your nice gear on the ground all that much, but it's a very cool world-building touch once you notice it. There are even dialogue lines specifically written and recorded to reference the item that might have been dropped or who saw you drop it. So I hope whatever developer put all the effort into programming this one is feeling pretty gratified right about now. Number 7. Realistically simulated headlights, Grand Theft Auto 5. If you were thinking that entries like a super old song and a single line of zombie cussing out graffiti are fairly minute details, I hope you enjoyed learning about them anyway, because this entry is about headlight positioning. Not just any headlight positioning though, headlight positioning in a game that you're pretty much just going to be speeding through the streets anyway, and when you are going through the streets, you're very rarely going to be on the right side of the road to notice it. If you are the specific type of gamer who likes to slow things down a bit, maybe stop at a red light or two and drive on the right side of the road in Grand Theft Auto, you would have noticed your headlights have a particular slant. This is the same slant headlights are manufactured with in real life. So when you're driving on the right side of the road, which I hope you are in real life, you don't blind oncoming cars. So a couple of relevant things here. The first being that Rockstar continues to raise the bar when it comes to lovingly replicating tiny details in their games. And the second is that if you didn't know this and thought one of your headlights might have been going out because it's slightly dimmer, it's probably all good. WhatCulture, of course, doesn't accept any liability if in fact one of your headlights is going out and you need to go get that checked. That's on you. Number 6, Roach Race Champion, Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 is another game that's positively littered with Easter eggs, references, and various homages. In fact, the only thing that outnumbers all the lovely little details is the still rampant bugs, but Night City is a delight to explore and get lost in all the same. It certainly didn't get off to a great start, but the futuristic playground is well and truly worth your time, now that the game-breaking bugs are down to an absolute minimum. There's loads to love in here and plenty of that classic Setter Projekt Red magic. While we're spoiled for choice when it comes to selecting just one awesome detail from this one, we've gone with the high scoreboard in the Roach Run minigame. This minigame can be played at various arcade machines littered throughout Night City, and of course it references Geralt's faithful steed, Roach. While that's a cute touch, it's the entry at the top of the high score leaderboard we're interested in for this particular entry. You might remember Ciri telling Geralt in The Witcher 3 that she visited a world where people had metal in their heads, waged war from a distance using things similar to megascopes, and everyone had their own flying ship. Geralt dismisses her story, but a peek at the Roach Run leaderboard proves not only was she there, she's apparently really great at this arcade game. The very top entry is Z1R343L, or Zariel in Leetspeak, the elder speech origin of Ciri's name. Number 5, Collateral Damage, Mass Effect 3 Citadel DLC. Much like many games on this list, the Mass Effect trilogy has no shortage of Easter eggs or references, and the Citadel DLC is home to a lot of them. While there are loads of sweet moments between your companions and callbacks from old friends that you'll no doubt have come across as you played this one, I'm betting far less of you focused fire on the Sky car in the Scythian Motors car lot. If you did decide to do that by electing to destroy the beautiful new car instead of the dudes who are literally shooting at you, you'll elicit an enormously pained cry from the Vola salesman watching the destruction unfold. Take out enough of them totally needlessly and he'll say, "My beautiful, beautiful cars." It's very silly and very unlikely for you to come across, but if you did happen to notice this one, it's another top tier bit of comedy from one of the best DLCs in video games. Number 4, Acrophobia, A Way Out. If you remember anything from A Way Out, it's probably that ending, which you'll remember as the last moment you were friends with whoever you decided to play A Way Out with. But if you can cast your mind to earlier on in Hazelight's co-op adventure, there's a few great little tidbits that can be found by observant players. Take for instance the section where Leo and Vincent need to cross a precarious bridge, trying to evade a helicopter that's after them. Leo makes a note of the fact that he's really not a fan of heights, and indeed, if you're paying attention to the split screen experience, there's a subtle yet hugely effective cinematic change to reflect this. There's a dolly zoom effect that trundles the camera angle in a sickening fashion only on Leo's side of the screen, to reflect his vertigo and nausea. It's a minor change in a section of the game that lasts no more than 20 seconds, but it is a lovely addition for those of you who pick up on that kind of thing. Number 3, Lightsabers and Water Don't Mix, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. If you know anything about lightsabers, apart from how fun it is to make their sound effects with your mouth, then it's probably the fact that they're hot laser weapons, so putting them in water wouldn't be the obvious choice. Then again, with video games being what they are, you might find yourself wanting to combine the two anyway, or you might just happen upon a spot of bad weather. Not to worry, as Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast had an answer for both of these scenarios. It's quite subtle, so you'd be forgiven for not noticing, but if you were caught in the rain in Raven Software's 2002 sci-fi shooter, you can see raindrops sizzling off your drawn saber and evaporating into smoke as they heat up. Want to dip that lightsaber right into a body of water? Well, of course you do, and don't worry, they thought about that one too. Swiping at the water with your weapon out will cause the water to boil temporarily. If that little feature sounds familiar, it's because this very same thing happens when you cast fire spells into water in Skyrim. You gotta love attentive dev teams. Number 2. Liliana designed Morrigan's dress, Dragon Age Origins. To be across this one, you'd have to be a Dragon Age fan who played the games from Origins through to Inquisition, and you'd have to have picked up on a particular randomly occurring side conversation between Liliana and Morrigan. Not to mention, you'd need to notice a relatively subtle detail that was mentioned in a game from 2009 and not implemented until another title in the series that arrived in 2014. If that describes you, well, I don't know what to say. You're just better than everybody else. But for me and everybody else who's watching right now, let me run you through it. A particular idle companion dialogue can occur while you're moseying around in Dragon Age Origins, wherein Liliana has a go at Morrigan for not dressing nicer. In the exchange, she says the following: "Maybe we could go get you a nice dress one day. Silk, no, maybe velvet. Velvet is heavier, better to guard against the cold in Ferelden. Dark red velvet, yes, with gold embroidery. It should be cut low in the front, of course, we don't want to hide your features. You don't think so? And if it's cut low in the front, we must put your hair up to show off that lovely neck." Liliana being a bit of a creep there aside, you might find that image to be somewhat familiar, and it should sound familiar. That's because it is very similar to the look and dress that Morrigan wears 2 games later in Dragon Age Inquisition. Right down to the neckline, the embroidery, and the hairstyle. Even though Morrigan shuts Liliana down at the time, she seems to have taken the fashion advice on board. Number 1. A sympathetic criminal. Judgement. Finally, we've got a relatively small detail from the fantastic Yakuza spin-off Judgement. These games are known for their practically unparalleled ability to combine high-stakes crime drama with earnest relationship building, and loads of comedic moments. This one would fall into that third category. While engaging in combat, there's a chance that a robber might try to steal from you. Of course, just because they try to steal from you doesn't necessarily mean you have anything to steal. If protagonist Yagami is especially down on his luck that day and has literally nothing for a bad guy to steal, the on-screen prompt says "stolen" with a question mark, adding, "You don't have any money." In the English translation, he says, "Wow, I'm that broke." It's more than a little embarrassing for Yagami, but very entertaining for us. That's the end of our list, but let me know down in that comment section if you can think of any other awesome little details from your favorite games that you reckon most people would have missed. As always, I've been Jess from WhatCulture. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you like, you can come say hi to me on my Twitter account where I'm @JessMcDonnell, but make sure you stay tuned to us here for plenty more gaming goodness.